So welcome to everyone, and good afternoon and good morning to you. Welcome to this great session that we call a bistro, with regularly organized to allow exchanges between practitioners and also researchers from time to time. So for this special session about agroecology and methodology through the handbook of agroecology. It has been organized both with colleagues from Gret in Asia and Africa. And we had also the support of communication officer of CIRAD with Nzong, and thanks a lot for that. And to facilitate easily this session, we had the translation for that, and for the French speaker, pour les francophones, vous pouvez choisir le canal.
For French speakers, you can choose the channel.
Le canal. En bas, sur l'icône.
At the bottom of your screen, you have the.
Voilà, sur l'avant-dernière icône, interprétation, et vous avez le choix.
You have an icon with interpretation.
Et vous pouvez choisir anglais ou français. Pour les anglophones, on peut rester.
Choose English or French.
Voilà, on peut rester sur cette session, mais les francophones, vous pouvez aller directement sur la session choisie sur l'icône du canal.
French speakers can choose to listen to the session in French if they want to.
So if there is no clarification about that, and don't hesitate to raise your hand and asking anything for that. So thank you to Laurent, Levard, and Premila Masse, and Manéré Ouedraogo. Laurent and Premila are program manager in Gret. And Manéré is Evaluation Officer in Burkina Faso. And thanks for three of you to have prepared this session, as well as with the support of Lucie Reynaud, who is coordinating the asset program from this great side. So just before giving you the hand, it's interesting to underline this entry about methodology and evaluation of agroecology is a good opportunity and a chance, by the way, to construct bridge and to exchange of the different stakeholders promoting agroecology. And so we have the different group partners of Alizea network in southern Eastern Asia, with various profile from researcher, university, policymakers, civil society, farming groups. In Cambodia, in Laos, in Vietnam, and Burma. So it's already a very huge group involved in this activity. And then we have also a possibility to exchange between the great practitioners from Africa as well, but also with the researchers from CIRAD, knowing that there is a co-coordination for the asset program between Gret and CIRAD, and Estelle Guénabé, who is co-coordinating with Mélanie Blanchard from CIRAD. Estelle is with us, and Lucie. And then as well, in terms of link, as you could see on this slide, there is a GTAE from the practitioner French NGO side with AgriSud, AVSF, and CARI, who were working on this handbook. So it's a really good opportunity and a chance to discuss about on that. And if there is and to run smoothly this session, please, of course, lock your microphone. When you want to ask question, raise your digital hand, and also you can write your commentaries or question in the chat. And Lucy will be a chat manager with myself, and will give back the question to the panel. And you can also ask directly the question, and it could be translated in same time. Okay, so the first presentation will be conducted by Laurent and Premila, something like 40 minutes. We'll have rapid questions for clarification, and then Manéré, from his side, will comment his own experience of his team of the application of the methodology of the handbook on the field. And then after, we can open the floor for question, larger question and debate. That's it from this general presentation. Maybe Lucy, you have a say before starting the presentation?
Thank you, François. I will be short. I will be quick. I would like to welcome everybody. We are really happy to see that there is a lot of people joining this session. We are now reaching nearly 80 participants. For those who don't know me, I'm Lucie Reynaud. I'm working for Gret, and I'm coordinating the regional project on Masse, on agroecology and safe food system transition, based in Laos, together with CIRAD colleague. I'm really happy to see a lot of faces from Alizea members, but also from Asset partners. For us, we are really proud to have this opportunity to make some synergies on this through this topic of evaluating agroecological performance and impact and enabling condition, to make synergies here between the different networks, from Alizea, from Asset project partners, also from research platform from CIRAD on ASEA and Malika. And we really hope that we will have a fruitful discussion on this topic. That's all for me. Thank you, François. And François, maybe to introduce yourself, maybe just quickly for our colleagues, for our partners.
Yes, I'm the scientific director of Gret and based in France. Thank you, Lucy. So Laurent and Premila, you can start. Thank you.
Just one slide. Sorry to disturb. Would it be possible to ask people to turn off their microphone and camera if they are not talking or raising their hands, because it slows down the internet connection? Thank you.
So thank you, François, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on the place where you are. We will, with Premila, make this presentation. We will present successively the context and objectives of the methodology we are developing, then the methodological principles, then the two approaches that structure the evaluation, then agro-environnemental evaluation and socio-economic evaluation. After that, the assessment of the conditions for the development of agroecology, and at least what we are calling the degree of agroecologisation, which is a complementary tool to describe production systems. So I will start with the context, the objectives and the progress of these activities. First of all, it is an activity, these activities about agroecology evaluation are implemented by a group, an informal group of 4 NGOs, which is called GTAE. That means Working Group on Agroecology Transitions. And this group includes AgriSud International, AVSF, that is agronomists and veterinarians without borders, CARI and Gret. And these activities are also developed in cooperation with research partners from 3 institutions, AgroParisTech, which is based in Paris, in France, and CIRAD and IRD. And recently, we have also collaboration with Montpellier Supagro. So it's a common activity we are developing together, being GTAE in charge of coordinating all the activities. We have been developing these activities for more or less 5 years now, 5 or 6 years. And we have started these activities seeing the lack of strong references on agroecology derivated from a common methodology. There are many studies all over the world about agroecology, about agroecology evaluation, but with different methodology, and that makes difficult to produce common conclusions, general conclusions on agroecology. We also saw that there is a lack of strong methodological tools for assessments, which is very important in order to produce strong references and strong results. So we also think that there is a real need for evaluation, both for development stakeholders and policy makers. Evaluation not only about the effects and impacts of agroecology, but also evaluation about the condition for agroecology development. Condition that is favorable and unfavorable, or limitations for agroecology development. So we have a general framework, which is an approach to agroecology assessment, and with the objective of enabling stakeholders, NGOs, farmers' organizations, policymakers, researchers, on one hand, to evaluate agro-environnemental and socio-economic effects and impacts of agroecology, and on the other hand, to assess the conditions for agroecology development, or we could say also, yes, favorable or unfavorable factors for the development of agroecology, or factors that enable the development of agroecology. We have been we have redacted a handbook for the evaluation of agroecology, which is now available in English. It's also available in French and in Spanish. And we are now implementing evaluation studies in several countries, in Asia, in Africa, in America, in order to test the methodology, in order to improve this methodology, and at the end, we have the objective, we have the idea to publish a new manual in 2023 about presenting the methodology for the evaluation of agroecology, and also presenting examples of implementation of this methodology from these different countries where we are actually experimenting this methodology. We also share, we also try to share experiences with different partners. For example, because actually there are many stakeholders who are working on this issue of agroecology evaluation, and it's very important for each one to share experiences so that it's possible for each one, I would say, to improve his own works. And in this sense, we are also contributing to other initiatives. You probably know the work that TAPE FAO has been developing. We have contributed to the methodology defined by FAO, and we are also discussing with them about our experiences, about the differences between our methodologies. And in the framework of asset project, we are also through great activities. We also want to contribute to the debates about this issue of agroecology evaluation. And we also propose training activities about agroecology evaluation. Now, some words about this methodology. First of all, it's a methodology that shall be implemented in different scales of analysis. For socio-economic evaluation and for the evaluation of conditions for agroecology development, the farm, the production system or farming system is the main scale of analysis. But for other issues, specifically for agro-environmental evaluation, we have also evaluation at plot level. And in some aspects, the evaluation is also at the level of a territory or awful value chain. The approach of the methodology is a comparative approach. In other words, we are comparing different farms that are more or less agroecological, and comparing these different farms, we can conclude if, for example, are differences in terms of income or in terms of yield, in terms of soil fertility. If we observe differences between the farms, we can conclude that agroecology is responsible of positive or negative effects on these criteria. This methodology is useful for the description of a situation. For example, starting a new project or starting a new policy for agroecology, we can describe a situation. It's like a photography of the situation that can be useful for defining the activities, the specific objectives and the activities of the project or of the policy. But this description of a situation can also be implemented independently of any project, any policy, any intervention. There is another kind of situation. It is when a project is implementing a monitoring evaluation mechanism. So under this monitoring evaluation mechanism, we can use the methodology of the handbook in order to monitor what are the progress in terms of agroecology development, but also to monitor how what are the changes in terms of the conditions for development of agroecology. The approach that we are implementing is a participatory approach, and in several stages of the methodology, there are discussions with the stakeholders, that is farmers, but also, for example, NGOs that are working on the field implementing projects. And at the end, I would like to mention that evaluation of agroecology effects shouldn't be confused with project evaluation. In project evaluation, there is a lot of things about, for example, relevance of the project, or about the efficiency of use of the monetary resources of the project. So in a project evaluation, there are some dimensions that are not present in the evaluation of agroecology effects. So evaluation of agroecology effects is something specific. Of course, if we are talking of a project that is promoting agroecology, it's clear that evaluation of agroecology effects will contribute to the project evaluation. There is two main approaches for the within this methodology. The first one is the diagnostic analysis of agrarian system. You know, this is a methodology which objective is to understand the diversity of agriculture at territorial level, and to understand what are the problems, the main problems of the farmers, and to make recommendation in order to promote development of agriculture. So we have adapted this methodology of diagnostic analysis of agrarian system with a specific attention to agroecological practices and systems at each stage of the analysis. What are the stages of this diagnostic analysis of agrarian system? First of all, literature review and evaluation of stakeholders' expectations. This is very important because, as you will see later, in this methodology, there are several criteria of evaluation. For example, to evaluate soil health, the yields, the incomes of the farmers, the impacts on food security, on human empowerment, and so on. So there is a great number of criteria, and in one evaluation, it's not possible for a question of time, it's not possible to pretend to evaluate, to assess all the criteria. So there are some criteria that we consider they are a basis, they are necessary, but there are also other criteria that are, we can say, are relevant in some situations and not relevant in other situations. So it's very important, starting the study, to ask the stakeholders what are the main criteria they consider important for them. For example, in some cases, food security would be something crucial for the stakeholders. But in other contexts, food security maybe is not a crucial issue. After that, there is an agro-socio-economic zonification, a reconstitution of the agrarian history, which lead to the development of a pre-typology of production systems on farms. Based on this pre-typology, we make a judgment sampling or purposive sampling of production farms and production systems on farm. It should be mentioned that the judgment sampling is a sampling of a few number of farms, where it will be possible to carry out in-depth case studies. So it's not a statistical representative sampling, but only a sampling of a limited number of farms. After that, there is, we can say, maybe the most important stage of the study, that is the in-depth farming case studies and the complementary of common areas. Then we can develop, we can build the typology, including economic results, and compare economic results, identify favorable and unfavorable conditions for agroecology development, to assess the respective weight of each type of farms in the territory, and also implement complementary assessments at plot level for some agro-environmental evaluation, for example, soil health, and then conclusions, presentation and discussions of the conclusions with the stakeholders. Sorry, François, how much time have I talked already? Well, doesn't matter. So,
Oui.
How much?
Oui, oui, ça fait une vingtaine de minutes.
Okay, okay. So I will finish. So this is a short example of a kind of result of this kind of evaluation. You have in this figure vertically the level of farm income per family worker, and horizontally the surface cultivated per family worker. And we have two kinds of farms, two kinds of farming systems. One kind of farming systems with a strong integration between cropping and livestock systems, that is a very agroecological farming systems, and another kind of farming systems with weak integration between cropping and livestock systems. That is a very we could say a non-agroecological farming system. And we can clearly see in this example, it's an example from Senegal, that the level of income per family worker is much higher in farms where farmers are implementing agroecological farming systems. So it's a kind of example of the kind of results that we can obtain through such a methodology. And the other kind of approach of this methodology is the monitoring evaluation mechanism, with also a specific attention to agroecological practices and systems. And now I will give the floor to my colleague Premila about the criteria of evaluation. So Premila, I give you also the screen. Okay, I think it's okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's okay. Yes, so for the next part of the memento is presenting the key topics for socio-economical and agro-environmental evaluation of the agroecology effect. And for each effect in the memento, we have a sheet who presents relevant criteria and indicator allowing to evaluate this effect and give advice to select the most relevant indicator according to the evaluation context and the methodological hints to implement the evaluation. For the agro-environmental evaluation, we propose 5 effects to evaluate. The first one is the yield direct measurement and it's the yield regularity. It includes measurement of biomass production for the crops and the numerical and weight productivity for livestock. It's allowed to evaluate the efficiency of the use of production factor like land and livestock. Another factor is another effect. Is soil health, as the soil is contributing to the provision of ecosystemic services, and these services depend on soil function that themselves are determined by biological life in the soil, by physical and chemical characteristics of the soil. And soil health measurement is relevant at plot level and according to the practice implemented by the farmer. Another effect is mitigation of greenhouse gases as human activity, including livestock, deforestation for agriculture extension, some farming practice, and intensive use of fossil energy are main sources of greenhouse gases, and they are contributing to climate change. However, agriculture can also reduce the gas emission and store carbon, and thus we can measure carbon print and carbon storage of the farm. And this effect and indicator also give information about the natural resource conservation, like for soil conservation. The next effect is efficiency of the use of water and nutrient resource, mainly for nitrogen and phosphorus. Here the efficiency is comparing the result between the 2 means implemented to achieve this result. And thus we are looking at how the resources are used and how what kind of consequences there is on the production, on profitability, or on the environment, like for positive externality and ecological sustainability. It's also give information about the level of mobilization of ecological process and how to optimize the use of these resources. The last agro-environmental effect is efficacy of the pest and disease regulation. Pest and disease population is gathering all forms of life that can damage the crops, including the insects, mites, nematode, pathogen agent, and weeds. And measurement of population pest and disease regulation is based on 3 criteria: the effectiveness of this pest and disease control, the maintenance of biodiversity, and the farmers' capacity to adapt their practice to improve their pest and disease control. This is a key factor for food security because it can affect the food stock in field, but also during the post-harvest storage. And that's why it's a key issue for the farmer to have to control this point. Regarding the socio-economic evaluation, we can do it through 9 effects. Sorry, we are also recording again yield, but this time according to farmer point of view. It's really essential to evaluate for economical performance at both farm level and at general interest level. And we are looking at the yield, also yield regularity to assess also the regularity of the farm income over the years and the evolution of the productive potential for the ecosystem. The next effect is regarding economic performance according again to farmer levels. It's measured through various economic indicators and calculation like gross added value per surface or per working day, gross margin, net added value, or how constitution of the farm income. This effect is essential to measure as the income is one of the main objectives of the farming activity. And at the general interest level, it's also give information about the contribution of the farm to the production of welfare at the territory level. The next effect is economic performance at a general interest level, mainly as a national level, which implies to take into account some indirect effect at upstream and downstream level of the production, but which is very useful for policymaker. However, due to the complexity of this effect in the memento, we just present its principle and not measurement way. Another effect is attractivity of agriculture for youth is measured through economical viability, liability of the farm, and security. And it's really relevant at the family level, but also as a community level, as its impact the economical environment and the maintenance and the creation of employment in a rural area. The next effect is the value chain and the trade organization, which is evaluated through outlet of farmer, development of value chain, and creation of wealth and employment. Because the development of agroecology system and practice can also bring change in the value chain, and which affect income level and the income regularity for farmers. It also impacts the territory development and the national economy. The next effect is about the farmers' autonomy. It's gathering various kind of autonomy, how to make decision, economical and financial autonomy, and technical autonomy. For us, autonomy means to have the capacity to make the choice on these different topics, but also to have the possibility to use this capacity. And it's rely on collaboration and partnership, meaning the capacity of the complementary actor to work together to find a solution. More specifically, we have also women autonomy or empowerment of women, which presents some gender indicator to assess the change of relation between men and women, because agroecology can really impact women empowerment, as in agriculture, women are really highly involved in the different farming activity. And it has been observed that diversification can affect their workload, and it also been prove that when there is additional income for women, there is a tendency for them to use it for education, health, or for the food of the kids. The next effect is regarding employment and welfare, which is measuring the capacity for the agri-system to provide employment to the family member and to explain how we can remunerate family work. And the welfare is impact on the farm sustainability. And finally, the food and the nutrition security effect is gathering all indicators for food disponibility, accessibility, use, and regularity. And it's also one of the essential effects, as food and nutrition security is one of the main objectives for the farming activity. And at community level, it's also impacting how farm can contribute to supply the local and national markets. Regarding the evaluation for the condition of development of agroecology, the methodology is relying on the analysis of various hypotheses about potential factor which can be favorable or against development of agroecology. And this hypothesis and evaluative question are relying on the reference grid in the memento, which is a list of non-exhaustive factor, which seems to be relevant in our previous work. So the idea is according to each context and how it's relevant for each context, to integrate this evaluative question during the interview with the farmer and the different stakeholder during the diagnosis phases. So in the memento, we present this factor through three categories, but there is an interconnection between these three categories. So the first category is related to factors associated to the farm level. For example, the consistency of the agroecology implementation with farmers' objective and interest. We will look at how the agroecology is in line with farmer agriculture, farmer objective, sorry, and what kind of risks can be associated to the agroecology implementation, and is it acceptable or not for the farmer. We will also look at the labor force requirement and arduousness, and how the family work is paid, and if there is any competition between agroecology practice and other practice in terms of workload. And also we will look at the knowledge and how the farmers have access to this knowledge, how it is shared between them. The second category of factors is linked to the physical context and socio-organizational context. It's including sorry, for agro-environnemental condition, we are looking at disponibility and usage of organic matter. Also, we will look at the factors linked to access to land and other natural resources, as it can impact how farmer can modify their ecosystem. And sorry. Also, we will look at the For agro-environnemental context, we will look at the accessibility and disponibility of water or level of degradation of ecosystem, because they will affect the level of investment required for a farmer to restore this system, or the interest of farmer, for example, in a very degraded area to restore their land. And we will look in terms of economical context to see how the farm in upstream can finance their implementation of agroecology or access to specific inputs or specific equipment, and how in downstream they can have access to specific market or have higher value for their agroecological products. And the last category of factors will be the public policy, where we will look at all public policy, analyzing their contents and how they are implemented. For example, for subvention or supply policy, for commercial policy or territory development policy, how they can affect the implementation or the development of agroecology. And also we will look at the territory level to see if there is any initiative, project of promotion and supporting agroecology, and we will analyze how these initiatives are working. And I will give back the floor to Laurent.
No, but you can do it. I will speak, but stay with the gap.
Okay.
So the last step is the evaluation of what we call the degree of agroecologization of production systems or farming systems. That is, are the production systems agroecological or not, or less agroecological? And in order to evaluate performances according to the degree of agroecologization, we should assess what is the degree of agroecologization. And doing this, assessing the degree of agroecologization is also useful within the framework of monitoring systems of farms, in order to assess how the farms are integrating agroecological principles in their activities. So, Premila, the assessment of the degree of agroecologization is based on 6 criteria: biodiversity, synergies, economy and recycling of elements, autonomy of the farm, soil protection practices, existence of practices that may contribute to agroecological sustainability of the food system. And we have 18 sub-criteria, and with a score from 0 to 3 for each sub-criterion. And at the end, we can calculate an overall farming agroecolo score, which with finally 5 range. We have non-agroecological production systems that integrate principles, some principles of agroecology, moderately agroecological production systems with a quite high degree of agroecologization, and production systems with a very high degree of agroecologization. So thank you for your attention. And François, I think I give you the floor, no? Or is it directly to Manéré?
No, we can have around 10 minutes just for a question of clarification, and then Manéré will continue.
So at the moment, there is no question on the chat.
No,
You have
no.
two options for comments or question. Either you can raise your hand or you can ask your question in the chat.
So if there is no reaction, with Manéré, you can.
There is two people that have raised their hands. I don't know who went first, so apologize for that. So maybe Vitun first from Gret from Thailand, and then Albrecht as a second. So Vitun, please, you can turn on your camera.
Okay, turn on my camera.
Yes.
And you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, good afternoon. Yes, I have also looked at the documents quickly and going through the questionnaires and things like that, indicators. And I have been using this, I don't know whether you know it, the FAO, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Office organization has put up a methodology called SAFA, Sustainable Agriculture and Food Assessment for Food and Agriculture Systems, I think. Okay, I'm not exactly sure, but the short name is SAFA, S-A-F-A. And it seems to be quite similar. I want to ask whether our team has also reviewed that or take part in that SAFA initiative. And can you, going through the documents, we have used that for our making sustainability assessment of our farmers for the last 2 years. So I would like to find out whether how much difference you see in the assessment, are the main criteria compared between these agroecologies and the SAFA.
Okay, François, you want? Can I speak?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Sorry for. Thank you for the question. Yes, we have contributed to the development of TAPE methodology by FAO. Actually, there are some similarities between both methodology, and there are also some differences. I would say that the two main differences is about these points. The first point is that in our methodology, we give a great importance to in-depth case studies of farms. because we think that if we want to evaluate agroecology effects with data that are reliable, we need to make in-depth case studies. That means to spend maybe 2 times 3 hours with the farmer. We also think that, and this is a second difference between both methodology. We include in the methodology, in our methodology, we include the evaluation of enabling conditions for agroecology, which is conditions for development of agroecology. And this question is not included in FAO methodology. And at the end, we have also other methodological discussions with FAO. Maybe I will not enter now into details, but for example, the typology FAO is building is based on the degree of characterization, on the degree of agroecologization of the production systems. And from our side, we think that a typology shouldn't be focused only on agroecology, because there are many factors, many conditions that explain why the farms are different, that explain the differentiation of farms, not only factors linked to agroecology. So we think that we should build a general typology of farms, then to evaluate the farms of each type, and then to see how agroecological are these types of farms. And this is a difference of approach with FAO approach. Maybe Premila, you want to say other things?
No, it's okay. We can move to other question. There is plenty.
Yes. There's a lot of questions actually. Yes. Albrecht, you raised your hand earlier, and then after we will go to the question from the chat.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. I just wanted to briefly come back to the conditions presented by Premila. And I think it's important to point out that these conditions, they are not simply side by side, but they influence each other. And therefore, it might be worthwhile looking at them in a more systemic manner. And I wanted to propose a model. I'm going to copy the link later in the chat, a model of actors' decisions. Because in the end, this is the decision of land users to implement or not agroecological practices is what will determine success or failure of this agroecology. So I'm just going to copy that link later in case you're interested. It's a model that tries to look also at institutions. Some of the things you have listed, they have to do with institutions. Others, they have to do with means and assets of the land users, such as knowledge, financial resources, labor force, etc., that you have listed. Yet others have to do with the meaning that people attribute to some actions, whether agroecology has the meaning for them at all or not, and so on. And as I mentioned their own practices will have, for example, an influence on the agroecological conditions, for example. So it's a dynamic interplay between these conditions, and that's what I just wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you, Albrecht. Do I raise a few questions from the chat?
Yes.
So we have questions regarding the typology of farmers, how the request of having more details information about the way to define the typology of farmers. We have question also regarding the interest to get more information on indicators to evaluate carbon sequestration. And finally, another question regarding the level of characterization, to give the score to each characterization. What is the criteria that can help to give the scores? So that's the first three. And we have maybe a last one regarding how can we explain how the approach general interests. So those are the three group of questions.
Yeah, maybe I can answer for carbon and Laurent for the other question. For carbon sequestration, we have two indicators. The one is a farm soil sequester carbon, and it's based on the average rate of soil carbon sequestration. And the second one is related to the it's a farm carbon footprint, and we look at the greenhouse gases sinks and source balance for at all farm level. So for the average rate of the soil carbon sequestration, we look at the plot level, and the idea is to establish a carbon balance, but it's based on the interview, a deep interview of the farmers. But for the farm carbon footprint, we propose to use the tools named Tropic Carbon CFarm, Carbon Farm Tools, which is a research tools who can be used on Excel.
Okay, so I will answer the other questions. First of all, I would like to say to Albrecht that I totally agree with the fact that the several factors that enable agroecological development should be addressed under a systemic approach. About the question about what are the criteria for the development of the typology, basically it's a typology of types. It's a typology that it is based on the resources of each farm, resources in terms of capital, in terms of land, and so on. And it's a typology that is based on the kind of farming system. What is the kind, what activities and which kind of technologies? So we could say that it is an agro-socio-economical typology. Regarding how the criteria for the score of the degree of agroecologization, there is a series of generic criteria. I mentioned 18 criteria, sub-criteria, and for each sub-criteria, there is 4 possibilities. For example, if you take the criteria about practices against soil erosion, so we have farms with no practices at all. So the score is 0. And you have farms with one or two practices, but only at the level of some of their plots. And so the score is 1, and so on. So one important thing is that we cannot implement exactly the same grid in all the territories, in all the countries. We have to adapt the grid to the concrete situation of each region. For example, the issue of soil erosion practices maybe is very important in some regions, but really it's not a relevant criteria in other situations. So we have to adapt the grid to concrete situations of the different countries. I'm not sure to understand well the third questions. It was about what is general interest. General interest is, we refer to an evaluation from the point of view of the global society, of the whole society at national level. I will give an example. If you take travail salarié, how can I translate that?
Paid work.
Sorry?
Paid work?
Yes,
Oh,
the paid work. That is not the work of the farmers and of their family themselves, but paid work. For the farmer, this is a cost of production, clearly. Okay? The salaries of the workers, of the paid workers, is a cost of production. At the level of the whole society, this is not a cost of production, because the workers are there and they can work or not work, but they are where. So what I just want to say is that the way to calculate economical criteria from the point of view of the farmer, from the individual point of view of the farmer, and from the point of view of the whole society, are not the way to calculate is not exactly the same one. So through the methodology, we propose both the evaluation from the point of view of the farmer and the evaluation from the point of view of the society.
François, there is no more
No
question
more.
on the chat. Yeah. So,
Yeah. So let's give the hand to Manéré, and it's a good occasion to illustrate the adaptation of the method and of the grid of specific context and field, by the way. Manéré?
My apology. Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everyone.
So now we may shift the English speakers may shift to the other channel.
If you want to listen to the English, I suggest you enable your English channel.
Alors, c'est Laurent qui a la version.
Okay.
So we're just waiting for the PowerPoint presentation to be shared on the screen.
Is it okay?
Yes, we can see your
Is
screen.
it
Yeah.
all right for everyone?
Oui, on peut continuer.
All right, we can go on, I think.
Oui, je suis Ouedraogo
Thank you.
Manéré du Gret au Burkina Faso.
All right, my name is Manéré Ouedraogo. I'm working at the Gret in Burkina Faso, in the country region. And I've worked on this methodology on site. And this great work inspired our project here that I will show you now. So Burkina Faso is located in the west region of the African continent, with two main seasons, one rain season and short season. And this experimentation was carried out in the center of the country. With a lot of rain, about 600 to 700 millimeters.
Sorry, just désolé.
So,
excuse-moi. Il y a des partenaires. There are some partners that didn't.
If some partners, if some participants still have doubts about the English-speaking channel, I suggest you click on the world, the planet that you can see, the globe that you can see at the bottom right corner of your screen. So you can open up the interpretation feature and choose the English channel. All right. Now back to our presentation. I would like to get back to our general map of Africa here. We have a very deep need to save water and to adapt our farming processes to that climatic context. This is where our project called Green Land was implemented in our region here. As you can see on the right side of the screen, there's a picture of our countryside and the hedgerow perimeter where people are, farmers are producing in this limited perimeter. So our plan was to evaluate and assess the processes here that were carried out in this zone of wooded countryside. So two farms were, two impacts were evaluated: the economic analysis, first of all, and we ended up with a few conclusions. The first lesson was that this economic impact and this economic evaluation was really relevant to farmers, because the farmers are provided with some interesting and relevant information about the management of their farms. But it needs to be mentioned here that it was kind of a time-wasting, time-consuming process, because the evaluation took a lot of time. And the farmers had to deal with their daily work and the evaluation that was carried out. Usually we needed between 4 and 6 months to complete the evaluation. So it was quite a lot of time for the farmers working on a daily basis. So it's very important to choose the relevant period of time where the evaluation could be carried out, depending on the workload of the farmers. As mentioned, as emphasized by Laurent earlier, the idea was not to go through all the criteria with each farmer, but just to cherry pick the relevant criteria based on the territorial needs.
de transfert, cash transfert, c'est-à-dire que, et donc, souvent, si les gens n'ont pas bien compris l'idée de l'étude, ils vont croire que c'est des dispositifs de cash transfert.
Some of the projects or evaluation works that are carried out in the region lead to cash transfer and subsidies. So it was important here to make the difference between these type of projects with cash transfers and our evaluation process, where we actually had to go through those criteria to assess properly. The other impact, the other outcome was to be able to compare the different farmers and the different ways of working. We could have a very horizontal outcomes here. More precisely, here, we could compare 2 periods of time, pre and post harvest, and we could get very interesting conclusions here. Also, I would like to highlight that these guidelines are have been carried out much more in depth than regular case studies. So it was very interesting to go through a thorough evaluation process. And it is important to explain this complete process before carrying it out. Not only in terms of rolling out the evaluation, but also in terms of managing the data, managing all the tables that needed to be filled in, to organize the different data that we could collect. So farmers need, and the project leaders need to be trained on that side as well about managing the data that are collected. Same training needed on the degree of agroecologisation, because it's a new tool, so it's a very complementary tool, but it's important to guide the farmers with the use of this tool.
L'historique agraire s'adresse à des personnes ressources pour comprendre l'historique agraire.
This is why in this overall mechanism, it's very important to interview and to engage with the resource person, the contact person that is at the core of the farming system.
We started also to implement, to use the memento in Cambodia, if she can give also a short feedback about their experience.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you, Premila. Thank you everyone for the presentation. So yes, indeed, in Cambodia, we also started to use memento of agroecology evaluation, though it's just a beginning. But we have actually 3 French students in 2 provinces, Batavag provinces and Siem Reap provinces, and 3 Khmer students working on this. The French students are focusing on the socio-economic aspect, Khmer student on the agro-environnemental aspect, together with the CIRAD and the University of Battambang. And actually, the French students are all trained already on the agrarian diagnostic methodology. So it's quite helpful in terms of understanding of the methodology. But it raised also some question for them. They didn't start to use yet the criteria of the memento, but like as Laurent mentioned earlier, the memento approach has different level of analysis, different scales, and sometimes it's difficult to compare and link together. For example, the fact that the socio-economic analysis is done at family exploitation like at farm level, when finally the agro-environnemental evaluation is done more like at plot level. So it can, yeah, it can be difficult to link them together. That's what we are facing a little bit in Battambang at the moment. Another point also is that because we're focusing a lot on agroecology, since the beginning of the study, we have this bias, more or less, and some of the students were confused, like when they have to make the pre-typology, they need to make it at farm level and general, but they're also looking with this specific focus on agroecology and in terms of which criteria are discriminating the different types. It was quite confusing for them. And so like how we switch from the normal and traditional agrarian diagnostic methodology to switch to the focus on agroecology, it was not so simple. So that were some concern we face on the field. And then related to the criteria themselves, we also face that, for example, the criteria on autonomy, the questions are quite wide and really open, bit the same regarding climate change, and it's much more complicated for farmers to answer this kind of question than, for example, question on yield, question on incomes, question on, these questions are like so large that finally it's much more difficult to get an answer, like a bit lost, and their approach a bit different. So we still need to find a way to ask this question and get some kind of answer from the farmer without taking too much time, because as Manéré mentioned, the interview already takes long, and the wild question takes even longer time. And another point was like, for example, the attractiveness for youth, and the basic question was like, okay, how do we define youth? And this depends on each country and each context, and we have to work a little bit on this, how to define youth. So yeah, that were for our preliminary challenge and question. That was what was raised in the two areas. And in the specific context of COVID, as mentioned, Laurent, normally it's a participatory approach, but at the moment we cannot organize any focus group discussion, and we are not sure in either how we'll make the restitution to the farmer. And so Manéré mentioned that, oh, it's super useful for the farmer because at the end they get the results and they get the analysis and blah, blah, blah. But finally, at the moment, we are not so sure how we'll be able to do it. So yeah, that's a current experience from Cambodia, from Siem Reap and Battambang. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine. There is one question from Bérangère. Oui.
Yes, exactly. Sorry, François. Yeah.
I may try to translate. Bérangère Quincy is asking which device about collection of data near the farmers is existing. Which type of a device, system of collection of data. And by the way, I have also, for Manéré, j'ai une question également. Donc merci Justine et Manéré pour ces traductions et ces mises en œuvre pratiques et au contact direct avec les exploitants.
By the way, I just would like to thank you both, Justine and Manéré, for sharing your experiences and your pilot projects, because it's quite a complex approach. So thanks for sharing your experiences. I do have a question about the participatory approach, like how could you choose, and how could you how could you choose the right criteria, the relevant criteria based on the local needs and the local expectations? Manéré, you mentioned that there was a very specific relation between the farmers on site and the project leaders. So how could you did you select those criteria for the evaluation altogether, or how did you manage the selection of the criteria? And the second side of my question is, The second question regards the variety of the projects that are carried out in those rural regions. There are so many projects led in the farming sector. So I'm just getting back to the confusion that Manéré mentioned between those cash transfer and safety subsidies offered by some projects and the other types of projects where, especially in the Sahel region, where those NGOs put into practice their agroecological approach in a very participatory manner with focus groups and interviews and interactions. So indeed, I can understand that local farmers are a bit confused between those two approaches, from the, let's say, the cash transfer approach and the participatory approach. Thank you, François, for the question. I'll try to answer those questions straight away. All right.
L'implication des agriculteurs.
Regarding the commitment of the farmers, to me, the very first step of the evaluation is to introduce them to the process, where we ask different stakeholders to come together, and we are introducing the whole methodology to them in the village, I mean. And during this meeting, we have also collected all their expectations and needs. So in this particular framework, we could interact with stakeholders in a very concrete manner. In this particular case, the handbook was used for the evaluation, for the criteria, and the handbook provided our researchers with tools and grids to work on the evaluation. So right from the beginning, our researcher, for example, suggested that we should evaluate the whole value chain in terms of producing and consuming local products here, specifically in our project. So we proceeded with the evaluation regarding the whole general interest and the farmers' interests. Second question regarded the confusion that can happen between the two types of aid projects. This is what I call the cash transfer approach, where most of the projects only focus on the household economy analysis, and they don't really make the link with other criteria. So this is why we chose we rolled out a different type of approach, a more horizontal approach with different criteria. So we can really know and understand what's going on in the field and answer those needs. Hello, Manéré, I can't hear you anymore. I think Manéré was cut off the Zoom meeting.
Your micro.
Oui.
François, is there something wrong here?
Il y a une interruption.
I don't know why. I think there was a cutting in on Manéré's side. I don't know where Manéré is at the moment. Sorry about this.
I think he lost the connection. He just leave the.
The meanwhile, maybe I can say about the question of about collection of data. No.
Yeah, vas-y.
Yes. The interview of farmers cannot be done with a formulaire and questions. There is all a process of discussion with the farmer based on what he answers. So this is not so easier than a simple formulaire. And for this reason, the people that are doing the study should have been trained before. And however, there is we have a guide with all the questions that shall be addressed in the interview, but it's not like a formulaire with specific questions.
Je vous ai perdu entre-temps. Je ne sais pas si vous avez pu suivre mes réponses.
Vas-y, oui, continue. Et Laurent en a profité pour répondre à la question du dispositif.
Thank you, Manéré. I think you are back, so we can move on to your second question, second answer. So yeah, going back to the cash transfer issue, we really need to take this into account and to explain the local people that we are not doing this type of cash transfer process. And from then, once they understand this, then we can roll out our evaluation methodology in a much smoother way. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there is a question around hands raised from Kien from Vietnam. Kien? We cannot hear you, Kien. I think your microphone you are muted.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the sharing of the handbook. I'm sorry that I came in a little bit late. We are in the process of studying a landscape where we would like to engage in transition from monocrop, so mono cassava, towards agroforestry. So, of course, with it, I'd like to have a little bit of is there any advice for what sort of I think like the presentation, we cannot do all the information, but what would be the priority matrix of information that should we focus to get the transition going? Thanks.
Premila, or I answer? I start and you can.
Okay.
Or,
yeah.
or what do you want to start?
Yeah, I don't know what is the context. Do you operate for a long time in this area? Because I think the main step will be to really understand what is the current agrarian system, what are the challenges for the farmer, and why do they, what is make them choose to do monocropping of cassava, what is the driver for them to do this. And once you have understood this driver, you can look at what can be the alternative and are they in line with agroecology transition.
Yes, I agree. It also depends whether there are already farmers with agroforestry production system or not? If there are already farmers with agroforestry system, it can be interesting to compare these farming systems with monocrop farming systems, economic results, and also to understand why some of the farmers have decided to change, or to understand what are the limitations for changing of farming system.
Okay, any other question, or Manéré and Justine, about this question? Maybe some advice or reaction?
No, for us, we really just started, so we don't really have, like, especially for the question regarding the tools and everything, we didn't really use them and have a lot of feedback to give yet. Like in few months, yes, but the study will be finished on the end of August. So it's early for us.
Thank you. I have two questions, by the way. It's about the training. It seemed that training the people who will conduct the collection of data and following and mainly being in interaction with the farmers should be essential. And in one hand, you could be specialized in agroecology or agronomy or such like that, but it seems that what you say, Laurent, that if you want to pick the proper and the relevant information, it won't be through a questionnaire, and it's a bit difficult. And so it's a bit difficult to be sure that we'll get the proper data let's say a good feeling with the farmers to get this information. And my question is it means that in terms of training, it's more a training of methodology of interacting with the farmers in a focus group, meaning that you have already the criteria, a list of questions, and it's a way of translating in a way of having very open question for the focus group. And this open question will be make farmers to react and giving back the criteria. I mean, it's between a quantitative approach translated to a qualitative one, and it means that it's a bit tricky in terms of ability to do it, and I'm quite sure that the training it should be required. And then again, my second question, it was more complementary than a question, is finally, if each field and situation and context require to adapt and to choose and to select a few of the best criteria, when you jump to this scale, the A, B, C, D, E scale, mean that my question is how to ponderate the different criteria, and finally, if there is a selection of specific criteria, how the comparison between each field could be possible if we compare not with the same criteria. It's a very naive question. Huh?
Premila?
Yeah, can you just sum up the
Pardon, alors ma
question?
première question, c'était, en fait, on a une liste de critères qui sont en partie des critères quantitatifs, qui sont avec une liste.
Yes, if I am trying to put it this way in a different, with different words, what I'm saying is that you are precisely choosing different criteria based on the farmer's needs. And at the very beginning, you're asking open questions so that the interviewers is building a deep relationship with the farmers. So my two questions regarded, first of all, the deep relationship built with the farmer and how scientists or researchers can proceed with this deep commitment and engagement with the farmers. How do you translate those open questions into data, analytic data? This is my first question. And the second question was about the selection of the criteria that you carry out first. How do you manage to compare the results based on the fact that you have different criteria first? You see what I mean? If you're trying to establish a scale from A to E, depending on the degree of the agroecologization of each farmer, how do you compare those results if they are not based on the same criteria?
So, in fact, during the whole diagnosis process, you have several kinds of interview with the stakeholder, and at each steps, you have a mix of open and open discussion and quantitative question. For example, for the first step related to the history and the understanding of the context, you will more going with open question. While when you start to make a study case, when you go deep at the farm level, you identify some farm who can be representative of your typology. And here you start to look at very precise and very quantitative data. For example, for the economical performance, or either for some agro-environnemental indicator, which is a really measurement. So you all over the process you are mixing this double entry. So I think what is a challenge is not that you in the memento you don't have a list of questionnaire. It's more like to orient what kind of topics you should question, and then the evaluator have to make his own interpretation and design his own interview guidelines with the farmer. Okay, and maybe for agroecologisation, Laurent, I'll let you answer.
No, yeah, I just will add that I think that the person that implement the study should have a good knowledge about development science, agricultural development science, about what are the drivers, the factors of development. So this is the first point I wanted to add. Just about the other question, within the same territory, within the determined study, we use the same criteria. Okay, I don't know if it's clear. We use the same criteria. So you can compare the farms of a same territory. Now, what I was explaining is that in other country, in other territory, the criteria that determine if a system is agroecological are not necessarily the same criteria that in other country. Yeah. So you can effectively you cannot compare farm from one country with a farm of another country. And regarding the degree of agroecologization.
Yeah, it's not comparable. Yeah. Thank you. Any other reaction or question or commentaries?
Pour chaque étape, effectivement, il y a
For each stage,
des questions qui doivent être
we have a list of questions that has to be
collecter les informations
developed in order to collect information.
à travers les orientations données dans le mémento.
And the information we want to collect are based on the guidelines given in the handbook, sorry.
Faciliter la collecte d'informations.
And with the view of making it easier to collect the required data. And we can also implement complementary tools to help us do that.
Thank you, Manéré. Pascal, maybe you want to have a comment that you
No, it was just to answer to Kien. I was not sure about a request. It was much about a minimum set of indicators to monitor change, or it was much more about alternative to cassava monocropping, or how to engage with the farming community into agroecological change. So I just put another, on a technical perspective, another site where you can also find some interesting videos, also technical stuff in different language, including Vietnamese, Lao, Khmer, and so on in the region.
Thank you. So if there is no other question or reaction, maybe both of you, Manéré, Justine, Laurent, Premila, and Lucy, you can maybe having just a last say or advice, mainly an advice for the next step of using and applying the handbook, and about the next step as well on the global program.
No, just to say that it is planned that under asset project we will have moments to share about evaluation methodology. So I think that people from Alizea members will have the opportunity to continue sharing about this issue.
Yes. And Lucy?
And also, sorry, and also to add that, of course, within in the asset program, under asset program, we are available, Premila and me, to eventually give any support on this issue of evaluation.
That's a good point. Lucy?
Nothing to add much. Yes, as Laurent said, actually within the assets project, the evaluation of the performance and the impacts of agroecological system and safe food system is a key, one of the key pillars of the project that mobilize different diversity of partners to work on this, to enable to have like a comparison also between between different initiatives and some flexibility. So it's a really, a key topic for the next 5 years of the project, and definitely also within Alizea network. I think a lot of among the networks, among Alizea network, there are already some partners, members that have initiated to test different tools on evaluation, the performance and the impact. We see how much it's important and needed also to make the links between the field evidence and policy makers as well, to produce recommendation and to feed the policy. So it's really part of what we intend to do within also Alizea network. So I think it was important for us. This is why we also organized this webinar today with the translation of the handbook. Now the handbook is available in English. So this is why we decided to have this open discussion around this topic, and we will have more experience also sharing about evaluation on performance of agroecology in the region in the coming months and years. And all will be shared. We have shared already the presentation and the handbook in the chat. But we can share it also by email. There is no more questions.
And we can also send post it on the Alizea site. No?
Sorry?
You can also post it in the Alizea site.
Website. Yeah. Yes, sure. We have recorded the session. So for maybe your colleagues or other partners that were not able to join today, they can look at the session in a replay mode in the next days. Kien, I was not sure, but yes, please. You want to add something?
Thank you, Laurent, and thank you, Lucia, to know that you are available for Evaluate. So we're Sandy as a local NGO also from Vietnam. We're actually supported by Secours Catholique Caritas France, SCCF. So in the project I'm dealing with now has certain difficulties in this quite mass transition of there is a proposal of doing transition from monocrop of cassava towards agroforestry of fruit crop. So by taking this chance, I know this is a little bit early, but would like to maybe look for opportunities to invite you, Laurent, maybe part of the coming up where we can see some joint with the SCCF from France to help us in advising how we can work in restoring the landscape in Central Highland. I will put in more an email communication later on. Thank you very much for the handbook. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kien, for sharing.
So thanks a lot for all the participants and for your reaction and question. Thanks for this very clear presentation of the frame of the handbook and for the feedback, concrete feedback from Burkina and also expectation from Cambodia. Thanks to you, all of you on that. Hoping that when we get we get some feedback as well and results, it would be a good opportunity to share it again among the participants. So thank as well for your technical support, your warm thanks for that help and following us today as well. And last time to Pauline and Chloe for this very clear and efficient support for the exchange between French speakers and English speakers and the various continents. Thanks a lot, and have a good end of the day.